Sunday mornings. I get an opportunity to spend time with you, and it's just a blessing. I don't take that for granted. And so we are continuing to talk about David and the betrayal that he had at the hand of his son Absalom. Now, we talked a couple of Sundays ago, and we talked about betrayal, and we talked about how cruel, Mother Helen, that betrayal is. And a lot of times the hurt, the deep hurt that betrayal brings. And I know that last Sunday with Sister Jean, you talked about the opposite of betrayal, which is loyalty. Loyalty. And it's something when you find a person that's loyal. Now, and it's something for us to be loyal. We know how we are when someone betrays us. And so I say this, and I said this to some people yesterday. So now if you know how that feels, don't you go out and do it. Don't you go out and do it, because it's a hurtful thing. But David, his betrayal ran deep because he was betrayed at the hand of his very own son, Absalom. And not only when Absalom left, he took some other people with him, some people who David thought were loyal to him. Ahithophel, who was actually, who was David's counselor. And David trusted his counsel. But we're going to see that Ahithophel had actually, it wasn't a hidden agenda. He had an ulterior motive behind him leaving David and going with Absalom. And so Ahithophel joined Absalom. They revolted against David, and here we start an all-out civil war. And so, as Sister Jean talked to you last Sunday, we're going to start at verse 23. Let's go to chapter 15 and verse 23. And so now, David is on the run again. Is there ever going to be a time, my God, where he's going to be able to sit down and rest? So David is on the run, and verse 23 says, and all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. And so they went on their way, but they were weeping as they went. You know the sad thing about this? The sad thing about this is that David was experiencing the chastening of the Lord. All of this happened as a result of his selfish actions. And so sometimes when, we begin to feel sorry for ourselves about the things that we're going through. But do we ever sit down to think how much of this we brought upon ourselves? A lot of things that's happening, or a lot of things that have happened to us were a result of our own unwise decisions. A result of our selfishness, a result of our lust, a result of that's just us wanting what we wanted. And so things began to happen, and then we began to start crying out, never thinking, well, you know what, I brought this all on myself. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. When you sit down and you realize that the things that you're going through, man, maybe they could have come out a little differently if I had done some things differently. Anybody ever ask you that sometime? If you could have gone back in your life and done some things differently, would you have done some things differently? Now, a lot of people say, I would have done everything just like it is. It would, but I don't know about that. I just don't know, when you can really see some things and you know exactly when it happened. And if you say right then in your mind, if I had just done this, if I had just done this. And so David is experiencing the chastening of the Lord, but just like he was experiencing the chastening of the Lord, there's one thing that David knew. David knew that God is merciful. He knew that, and he kept that in the forefront of his mind. And what David had in his mind was, well, if God is allowing this to happen to me, he is still a merciful God. That takes nothing away from him. That takes nothing away from how good he is. It takes nothing away from him. And so he would continue to cry out. I believe Sister Jean read to you one of the Psalms that was probably written during this time. And what you will notice about those Psalms that he wrote during this time is he cried out, "The Lord have mercy." Yes, indeed. Lord have mercy. Because he knew that in what he was going through, when you're running from your family members, you need the Lord's mercy. When somebody is out to kill you, you need the Lord's mercy. You need the Lord's guidance. You need the Lord's hand of protection over you. You need to know that there's someone who has more sense than you, who can make a better decision, because in a situation like that, are you really thinking clearly other than, what you're trying to do is just escape. You're trying to escape. And so David knew that God was still merciful. And so now he's on the run again. He's out in the wilderness again. And as I said earlier, it's something when your own actions drive you into the wilderness. You're experiencing ostracism and you're experiencing lack because of your own actions. So you're in the wilderness. You're in the wilderness. But is the wilderness meant to kill you? No. The wilderness is not meant to kill you. The wilderness is meant to build you up. The wilderness is meant to bring out the character that God has given each and every one of us. God has given. We're not built to break. Believe that. No matter what the devil tells you, no matter what you're going through, and let me tell you, we can go through some things where it seems like we have the weight of the world on our very back. But we are not built to break. God wouldn't do that.
Lady Deborah, what I think that when you get in a situation like David is, and then most of the things that happen is our fault. We put ourselves in that position, whether we can see it or not. And I think you have to stay away from negative emotions. And one of the main ones is guilt. You're wallowing in self-pity about what you did and how you done messed up and all that. And what you're doing is you're wasting today. Today is a gift that God has given me. Whatever it is, you just need to man up and accept what you have done and move on. And basically, the only remedy, Robert, for that is don't do it no more. You cannot go back into yesterday and change anything. You just wasted time. And so I know it's many more negative emotions, but that's one that I really try to key in on. And I think we've been notorious in the church about trying to make people feel guilty because we've been notorious for manipulating people.
I actually love that, what you said about living in the moment. I have been so guilty of being over into tomorrow, back in yesterday, and robbing myself of what is happening at this very moment. I'm so guilty. And a lot of times when you catch yourself at it, we have situations with our family members. We're talking about family this morning, Absalom and David. Situations with our family members. We're caught up in what they did to us yesterday. Caught up into trying to see if we're going to have enough money to do what we need to do tomorrow. And yesterday is just all around us begging for attention. And we're not giving today the attention that is warranted.
Lady Deborah, I have been going along and doing fine. And just think something to tow up, a light come on in the car or something like that, just ruin my whole day. Because I'm thinking about, now I probably even got the money to pay for it. But it's just negative emotions.
Yes.
that I have not been taught to identify because church has been so spooky and spiritual that it actually never addressed my real life, what I was living.
Yes, yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Would you agree with that? And so now they're going out into the wilderness. And so as you were taught last Sunday, then Zadok and Abiathar brought the ark to David, the ark of the covenant. But David sent them back with the ark to Jerusalem because actually he thought and felt that the ark should be there in Jerusalem. And in his mind, hoping that God was going to eventually allow him to get back to Jerusalem where the ark was. So he didn't want to treat the ark like a good luck charm. You know, they had tried that before. Go get the ark, Saul. Go get the ark, treat it just like a good luck charm, but it wasn't to be treated like that. And so David had a spy system that he set in place, and the priests were part of that spy system. So he sent them back to be his eyes and his ears in Jerusalem to help him, to help plan a strategy for him to get back to Jerusalem. And so what the Bible says then is that when they brought the ark to him, he sent them back in verse 26. But if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, talking about the Lord, behold, here am I, let him do to me as seemeth good unto him. The king said also unto Zadok, I'm in chapter 15, verse 27, the priest, art not thou a seer? Return into the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz thy son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. See, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness until there come word from you to certify me. And so they took the ark back, and then they went up by the ascent of Mount Olive, still weeping and crying as they went. Still weeping and crying. And then verse 31, and one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. And this is going to be key in what's getting ready to happen with Absalom and with David. He said, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness, because David and Absalom, they trusted the counsel of Ahithophel. They trusted the counsel. But he said, now, if he got the nerve to turn coat on me with Absalom, that whatever he say come to foolishness. Let it be foolishness. And so this is going to be key when we talk about the victory that David is going to have as it relates to Absalom. And it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mountain where he worshiped God, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. And so David, when he got word that he had been deserted by Ahithophel, you know, he didn't allow that to really get to him, but he continued to worship the Lord. And so here's a teaching moment for us, is that when we're going through what we're going through, we got to keep a praise in our spirit. We've got to keep our eyes on the Lord, because he's the only one who can help us through the situation that we're going through. He is the only one who is able to help us. And so he prayed and he worshiped, because that is where his strength was. And so Hushai was the answer to David's prayer. And so when he sent the priest back, he also sent Hushai back, as Sister Jean taught you last Sunday, and said, you go back, join yourself with Absalom, and then you let me know what's going on, and that's going to help me. And so Hushai was able to get back into Jerusalem without the people noticing, probably because they were so excited about Absalom coming into the city. And so in verse 37, 15 and 37, Hushai, David's friend, came into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. And so right there at that point, this story stops. It's going to pick back up over in the 16th chapter, the 15th verse, but there is a little interruption here where we are reintroduced to Ziba or Ziba. You remember him? Do you remember that name? Do you remember that name? Ziba? That was with Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth's. He was the caretaker for Mephibosheth. And so he is coming here in a deceitful way to David in chapter 16. And, you know, when you're on the run for your life, when the throne's been taken from you, when what do you imagine was David's state of mind? All by himself, felt alone, distressed, discouraged, depressed, all of the above, all of that. And so here comes Ziba with, you know, he has food and he's giving them food and, you know, he is talking to him. And the king said unto Ziba, what meanest thou by these things? Well, you bringing me all of this stuff. What is going on? Why are you doing this? And so Ziba said and David asked, well, where is thy master's son? In other words, where is Mephibosheth? And Ziba said unto the king, verse 3, 16 verse 3, behold, he abideth at Jerusalem. Now, who's in Jerusalem now? Absalom. Behold, he abideth in Jerusalem, at Jerusalem. For he said, today shall the house of Israel restore me the kingdom of my father. So now this is making David think that, Lord, Mephibosheth, you too? Everybody turning on me? But Ziba was lying. He was lying. But you know, David was already, as we have said, and David was already wounded. And so, you know, you're not in any shape. And this is another teachable moment. When we are depressed, distressed, discouraged, feeling downtrodden, downhearted, it's not good for us to make too many decisions. You know, what they say, halt. It's not good for us to get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. Anytime you are any of those and you're trying to make a decision, you'll make a rash decision or you'll make an irrational decision. And so you need to really kind of, you know, everybody who really knows me, they know I have to eat on time. When my blood sugar starts dropping, I get crazy. I start looking crazy. I start snapping at everybody. And I'm not really nice to be around, like that Snickers commercial. I'm not myself when I'm hungry. I'm not. And so, you know, David wasn't himself. He was not himself. And so, you know what he said? He said, you know what? Whatever. Just go on. You just, you know, he says, then said the king to Ziba, behold, thine are all that pertained unto Mephibosheth. And Ziba said, I humbly beseech thee that I may find grace in thy sight, my lord, O king. Ziba was out for himself, trying to get everything that he could for himself. And so David accepted his story, but we're going to see later on that Ziba's story was discredited. And so now we come to another point. So David is experiencing one thing after another. And it all has to do with the chastening of the Lord. You know how sometimes, though, when you're down, it looks like you get kicked when you're down. That's kind of what David is experiencing now. So he got that from Ziba, and then now he comes to Shimei. And when King David, verse 5, came to Bahurim, behold, thence come out a man of the family of the house of Saul. Because what you have to realize here is that there is still a strong contingency, a strong constituents that still were for Saul. Saul still had a fan club. And there were a group of people that thought David shouldn't have been on the throne. So then he had a group of people that just did not like him. And so here we come to Shimei, and he cast stones at David and at all the servants of King David, and all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And thus said Shimei when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. You know, he just really, he talking about David. You know, you're not worth the salt. You know, you're not worth the ground that you're walking on, really. You're just worthless. And you really shouldn't be on the throne because you took the throne from Saul. You know, Saul is dead now because, you know, they're the fan club. And it's all because of you. You shouldn't be where you are. You shouldn't be the king. So he was blaming David for the death of Saul and his sons. And so he threw the stones and clumps of dirt. And so David, again, I just see him like Eeyore. I don't know if you're familiar with Winnie the Pooh, but Eeyore goes like this, and nothing is ever good. Oh, woe is me. Woe is me. I just see David just, you know, with nothing left in him. I can see him when that happens saying, you know what, because someone wanted to go up, but Abishai wanted to go up and say, look, let me do something about this. He has no business talking to you, the king, like this. He has no business doing what he's doing. And David said, you know what, I'm too tired to even put up a fight. I'm just too tired to put up a fight. And so in verse 10, he says, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord has said unto him, curse David. Who shall then say, wherefore hast thou done so? And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my son, which came forth out of my bowels, seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? You know, if Absalom, if my own son is trying to kill me, you know. And so let him curse, for the Lord has bidden it. So David is accepting the chastening of the Lord. He said, it may be that the Lord will look on my affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for his cursing this day. And as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over against him and cursed as he went. Just still cursing. That's something, isn't it? Ernest T. Bass started throwing stones and cursing. Throwing thrones. Just still wouldn't let up. And the king and all the people that were with him came weary and refreshed themselves there. And so David had come to a point of submission. You know, he's discouraged, but then he's at a point of submission because, again, he accepted that abuse from Shimei, because that's certainly what that was. That was abusive. He said, well, you know what? The Lord is allowing it. So if the Lord is allowing it, so be it. So be it. I'm going to tell you something, y'all. You got to go through what you got to go through. You got to go through it. And that does not just for me. That's for every one of us sitting in here. It's something we're going to have to go through. And sometimes it's not going to do us a bit of good to buck up against it, because you got to go through it. You got to go through it. Sometimes we just have to, what do they say, see it through and see it out? You just have to. You just have to. Let it play out the way it plays out. Bucking up against it won't do nothing but make you tired. Make you tired and frustrated. And frustrated. You know, the Lord said to Paul, where at that time he was Saul, don't you know it's hard to kick against a prick? Well, you're trying to get away from something that you can't get away from. It's going to happen whether you believe it or not. It's going to happen whether you want it to happen or not. It really is. Yes, it is. It certainly is. Yes, Lord, it is a relief. And then, it helps you with your testimony. It helps you with your witness.
Lady Deborah, it's not the Bible, but I think it's Shakespeare that says that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but the valiant only dies once. What I find is that I spend years fearing something that is not really that bad once I face it, once I try to do something about it. You have to take some action. You have to take some action. You sit up and think about it all day long. You ain't done nothing. Nothing but sit up there in fear, and you're dying 1,000 deaths.
Yes, that is so true, so true. And so, thank you, Brother Davis, for that. That is so true. It is a relief. It's a relief on a couple of levels. It's a relief that you've gone through it. It's a relief, that it's over. And it's a relief that you live to tell about it and talk about it. Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And so now we pick back up Hushai. Hushai, remember, that's David's friend that he sent back to Jerusalem. He told to go and join yourself with Absalom. So now this is part of his spy system. So Hushai's purpose was to frustrate the counsel of Ahithophel. And so here's another teachable moment. Every one of us have a purpose. Every one of us have a purpose. And sometimes it's not the purpose we think it is. We start out thinking that it is. Because Hushai, he wanted to go and be with David. He wanted to go there.
Lady Deborah, I agree with you, but I want to refine that a little bit of what I believe. You said every one of us have a purpose. I believe refining that is every one of us, God has a purpose that he wants to work through our life.
I believe that, yes.
And my struggle is what I want and what God wants. But like Brother David says, the moment that I can surrender and submit, like you said, and say, not my will, but thy will be done. And I've never been dissatisfied with what God was going to do. But it just did not coincide with what I thought would be best. Even the people that's in my life now, these ain't the folks I chose. I chose some more folk, but I'm so glad.
Yes.
I'm so glad.
Yes. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor. And so Hushai's purpose, initially he thought, well, everybody's turning their back on you. I'm your friend. You thought Ahithophel was your friend, but I'm really your friend. So he thought his purpose was to go and encourage David at that point, and go to be with him. And so David said, no, you go back. He said, because, at this point, as Sister Jean told you last Sunday, he said, you're just going to be a burden to me. So instead of you going with me, go back to Jerusalem, open up your eyes and open up your ears, and you can help me that way. So now his purpose was to frustrate the counsel of Ahithophel, but before he could do that, he had to win Absalom's confidence. He had to make Absalom think that he was there to support him as the new king. And not that, didn't need to think that Hushai was a spy, because, of course, Absalom says to him, look at, I'm in chapter 16, and I'm in verse 15. And Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. And it came to pass when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, was come unto Absalom, that Hushai said unto Absalom, God save the king, God save the king. And Absalom said to Hushai, is this thy kindness to thy friend? Why wentest thou not with thy friend? And Hushai said unto Absalom, nay, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and with him will I abide. Well, now, Absalom had a big ego. Would you agree? Really? Absalom had a big ego. But Hushai never said, I'm coming with you. Mm-hmm. He said, whom the Lord choose. All right. Did the Lord choose Absalom? No. But Absalom's ego is so big, he thinking that everybody's always talking about him and, lifting him up. And so he says, and again, whom should I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son? As I have served in thy father's presence, so will I be in thy presence. And then said Absalom to Ahithophel, give counsel among you what we shall do. And Ahithophel said unto Absalom, go in unto thy father's concubines. So now you remember that there were 10 concubines left there to manage the household. And so part of his going back and claiming the kingdom was first he had to seize his father's throne and let it be known to everybody, David is out and I'm in. I'm the man now. I'm the king. And so he looked to get Ahithophel's point of view. Ahithophel's telling him to, and one thing you have to look at about Ahithophel is that he was a good counselor, but he never consulted the Lord. He never consulted the Lord. He was just wise. You know people who are just wise. You know people like that? I do. They're wise, but it's not like in their own strength.
And Lady Deborah, I'm big on this today, is who I'm talking to and who I'm spending time with and who I'm getting counsel from, Brother Davis. Do they have a conflict of interest? Do they have a conflict of interest? And so even I'll go to pastors. I was thinking about that this morning. Well, you steadily coming back to the members talking about, I think I need a raise. Well, what you here for? What you here for? You see what I'm saying? And so, I mean, that's fine, but I'm just saying that's kind of like one of them signs of you got a conflict of interest. You have a conflict of interest. And then as soon as another church offer you more money, you go on somewhere else. And so I'm just real, and this grown folk stuff here. It's taking me 60-something years to figure to get here. Is the folk do, what is their interest? Are they really interested in you? Or are they interested in something else?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it take a while to get there. Because folk can, I promise you can't go by the grins and the talk. Because folk can talk to you real good. You just love them. Because, boy, they got that, what they call it, charismatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a conflict of interest, you always look at the bottom line is, why are you doing what you're doing? That's the bottom line. And you have to find it and you have to look at it. Is there a conflict here? Why are you doing what you're doing? Really? Why you want me to do that? Really? And so you have to look to see what is the bottom line, and that's where you find whether there is a conflict of interest or not.
And you always have to watch somebody who love money. You always have to watch them, because if it come down between you and money, guess what?
Oh Lord, I didn't know you were gonna be talking about me this morning. Oh, Lord.
Well, now you need somebody to love money to a certain extent. You get up and do something.
Amen. And so, here, Ahithophel's, he's saying, okay, go into your father's concubine. And as I said earlier, Absalom has a big ego. He doesn't do anything, he goes up on the rooftop. He takes the concubines in front of everybody so everybody can see it. I want you to know what I'm doing. I want you to know how bad I am. I want you to know my daddy doesn't mean a thing to me. Not a thing. That's what I mean. He was rotten. Have y'all ever seen that movie, The Bad Seed? One is an old school one, and then one is a new school one. But Absalom was a bad seed. He was. He never meant his father any good. He never did. And I know sometimes we think we can love him back to.
And Lady Deborah.
Sometimes people just riding, y'all.
Another thing it took me a long time to learn is that usually people don't change.
Mm.
I went back around some relatives yesterday. The same one that looked at me with their nose like this when I was a kid, they still looking at me. It don't make no difference how much I have achieved. It don't make no difference what I'm riding in, what I got on and everything. People don't change. Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do. If the Lord comes in and touches their heart,
yeah,
they
but
will. Yeah.
for the most part,
Yeah.
they change.
Yeah. Yeah. I really kind of agree with you on that one. I
You
do.
know, Pastor, they feel like that you schemed it or you just fooling us or you still, you never been one to sell drugs. You've always taken the drug. But they feel like you just the same, you know, he ain't changed. And I remember when he was this. Okay, you remember. But the scripture says, Vanda, I'm going to take all you've done, everything you've done, and I'm going to cast it into the sea of forgiveness, and it won't, hallelujah, it won't rise up against you. Now, he said that, and that's the approval. But now I bring it up, I remember when he was doing this. But God don't remember that. What I remember, it doesn't count. But there are some family members, you ain't lying. I have worked. I did everything I know to try just to hear them say one time.
One good thing about that.
One time, you proved us wrong. Because I was always told I was going to be a nappy head with a bunch of nappy head, nasty children. I worked my fingers off. I did everything I know to try to get my family to approve.
Yeah.
And I haven't made it yet.
Let 'em go.
But I got God's approval.
There you go.
But
There
he
you
said,
go.
Lola, I know the plans. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm full this morning, but I know God.
Yeah.
And I know he approves of me.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
all what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
That's all what
And that's all that matters, honestly. And I'm telling you, Mother Nunn and MCF, we had to come to a point where we know. Yeah, it is hard to come to a point, but when we have the confidence, like David did, David said, "Look, the Lord is allowing this, but I know God is still on my side."
And Lady Deborah, if it's any consolation, what you have to come to the understanding of, it never was you. That was them. The Bible says to the pure, all things are pure. And so if a person has the right kind of heart, they can always see something good in you. But if they don't have the right kind of heart, they don't see nothing in you, in nobody. It ain't just you. They don't see nothing.
Also, it's just a lot of jealousy.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about. They just jealous, and they can see the spirit. They can see the spirit that's working in you, and they jealous of it.
And y'all, you know what? Sometimes, Mother Nunn, I'm telling you, sometimes you just got to find your tribe. And sometimes it's not your family. Y'all, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow because we love our people, black folk. And we love them hard. We love them when they're up and when they're down. We do. But I tell you, sometimes your tribe is not your family. That's what we're talking about this morning. Absalom. You know what? Joab had to go to, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Joab had to go to David because, Absalom was riding. Joab knew it. He could see what David couldn't see. When Absalom was finally killed, he laid around whining and moaning and, oh, Absalom, my son, my son, my son, my son.
Maybe that's the reason why you put it in that family, because the majority of the time that the people that are really against you are your family members. That's right, and that's what it is. And the biggest jealous ones in the people that not related to you.
And this is helpful to me right here, Lady Deborah. I had to snatch myself up out of this right here because I'm a very generous person. I don't know too many people that'll give more than that, and give and won't even remember I gave it to them. I'll do that because God put it in my heart. But what I had to learn was just because that you good to people don't mean that's going to mean they think nothing of you. Folks will come in and eat your food and won't get out the room burping and talking about you. I had to accept that, and I'm all right with that today.
You ain't told nothing but the truth.
When I give now, I don't give from my hand. I give from my heart. And that's the reason I don't like nobody to ask me for nothing. Now, don't ask me for nothing. Because now, if God put it on my heart to give it to you, you can take and do whatever you want to do. You can go down the street and talk about I ain't nothing, and you ain't going to hurt me because I didn't give it from my hand. I gave that from my heart.
Yeah. That's true. I had to tell somebody just the other day, and I'll give that back to you, Mother, but I had to tell somebody the other day, and, it's just a truth from here to heaven, I'm giving you this, and you can take this any way you want to take it. Don't ask me for nothing anymore. For this, for what you're asking me for. Don't do that anymore. I'm not going to, I don't mean I don't love you, but I'm not doing it. You got to come to a point where you back up. I have a friend, and we were talking about family. And she was talking about how she's been enabling a family member. And she said, and I had to ask the Lord, Lord, if I'm wrong, you help me. She said, but I can have toilet tissue rolling out the door. And if it's rolling out the door, I'm not doing another thing. I'm not doing She said, no, I'm not doing anything else. Because I'm helping to create this problem. I'm not doing anything to solve this problem. And I can give every dime I got, but every dime I got is not going to help the problem because you keep doing the same thing over and over. Now, who the fool if you keep doing the same thing over and over?
Amen.
I'm sorry.
She just said part of mine. Because really, the people, your own family, in your household, are your worst enemy. Well, you are your own worst enemy, but because you let them make a nut out of you.
Yeah.
And as long, like you said, as long as you're helping them and it's not solving the problem, but you're trying to help them because you love them.
You love them.
And it's
You
not
love
doing
them.
any good.
You love them. Love, I tell you, love. And sometimes, though, we have to distinguish, okay, is this love or is this guilt?
Yeah.
Is this love or is this guilt? Is it love or is it guilt? But, our emotions, y'all, can get the better of us. And sometimes we just walking around living in our emotions, making some pitiful, poor decisions.
Let me say this right here. And I said it in front of your face, and I say it to other people. I don't care if they don't like it or not. Ain't too many Deborah Blands. I can tell you that right now. It's a woman. That's a woman right there. And with me being on crack for 5 years and everything, stealing out the house and doing all that, she could have. The Bible says that a wise woman build a house up and a foolish one tear it down. You tear your own house down. And no telling what you're going to have to go through if you get married. And she could have, Dorothy, kept throwing. Well, she could have stayed there, but kept throwing up in my face, Brother Davis, what I had done. You see what I'm saying? But she didn't do that. Some kind of way she was able to just accept and move on and whatever. Because in order to move on, you have to stop being the victim. And I don't allow people to victimize me about my past. I talk about it, but I don't want to hear it from you. I talk about it in order to encourage other folk. But you're not going to come up to me and victimize me the rest of my life about what I've done, because everybody done something. I ain't fooled. I might talk about mine, but don't think you done something too.
Well, can I just say? Let me just say, that the Lord that did that. I'm gonna tell you what it was. I chose to stay. You hear me, Mother? This is when I talk to young women. I chose to stay, and if I made the choice to stay, why would I? Why would I keep beating him up? Why would I keep doing? That I'm not getting pleasure out of that. So if it was my decision, then what is it left for me to do? But let's try to build each other up and move on. Let's just try to move on.
The one thing that kept y'all, God was in it, and you loved it, this man. You loved him.
Y'all keep saying that. I know y'all want to make it like a fairy tale. Let me just help y'all with that. A dog get tired. Come on now. A dog get tired.
That's right.
but you know what?
Much
Like I
prayer.
said, you know what? You know what? It's my decision to stay. It's my and you know what? I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior for real. For real. And I don't take the credit for that. I give the credit to God. He gets the glory for that. But you got to have some fight in you.
But let me put this as addendum, everything. There's a blessing in being a fighter. Because let me tell you something. If I had to go look for him on a rock, if she asked for it, I promised to God this morning I'm trying to give it to her. So it's
Praise the Lord, everybody. With that, we're going to just give the Lord a hand praise and get ready for the next part of the service.